אני מה זה מתרגש לקראת הפרק הקרוב, כי הולך להיות לנו פה אורח מיוחד מאוד, סוג של אדם שבנה דברים שאם הייתם ילדים, או יש לכם ילדים, כנראה השפיע על החיים שלכם, בצורה כזו או אחרת, הוא נגע בחיים שלכם, ולא ידעתם שהשם שלו הוא בכלל ישראלי, והמקור שלו הוא כזה, אז בואו נשים מוזיקה, הנה אתם שומעים את הצחוק שלו, הפרק הזה יהיה באנגלית, למרות שמו הישראלי, נשים מוזיקה ונגיד לו שלום. ולפני שנשים את המוזיקה, רק נזכיר את שיתוף הפעולה שלנו עם כלכליסט, גם הפרק הזה עולה באתר כלכליסט, אז אתם מוזמנים להציץ גם שם. יאללה, מוזיקה ומתחילים. So, hello, Ronen Harari.
Hello, Maviv.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
So,
Great to be here.
I'm confused. You have the most Israeli name, but you prefer speaking English, right?
It's true. My parents gave me an incredible gift. They gave me an incredible Israeli first name and last name, and they forgot to teach me Hebrew.
So let's go back to childhood. Where are you from? How did you start your career?
You know, I was originally born in South Africa, and then I moved to Canada when I was 5. And
So your parents are Israeli that moved to South Africa?
correct. My parents were born in Bulgaria, and they grew up in Yaffo. And then in their 20s, they moved to South Africa and had 3 kids, and then we moved to Canada. And, you know, for me, I consider myself, I'm kind of like a mutt. So I'm like a third Israeli, a third South African, and 40% Canadian.
Okay.
So a good mix.
Okay. So we will talk about, the empire you built, the toy and media empire you built for kids. Okay. Just to name a few of the things you built, Bakugan, Paw Patrol, and more. But everything started with Rosh Deshe, right?
That's true. All good things come from Israel.
So tell me, how did you start your career?
You know, we graduated from university. And,
Who's we?
Myself, my partner Anton Robbie and Ben Verity. And literally a week after we graduated, my mother was reading the Yediot Achronot.
Yediot Achronot.
Correct.
She got Yediot Achronot to Canada?
Yeah, you know, Israelis, they love, they like to watch Channel 12. They like to stay connected.
Right, yeah.
So that was back in the 90s. That was the best way to do it. And she said to me, there's this crazy article about these 6 Israelis that are selling this Rosh Deshet product in Israel and how it's doing incredible. And in classic Israeli form, everybody likes to share information. So they all shared their numbers, how well they were doing, how much they were selling. And literally 3 weeks later, my late grandmother came to visit. And she brought me and my sisters each a Rosh Deshet as a present.
That was, a hit back then in the 90s. Everyone got this.
Yeah, we heard it was just like the pet rock in Israel.
And just for people who are not familiar with Rosh Deshe, it's a sort of a plastilina thing with seeds of grass inside a pantyhose, and you're, putting water on it, and it grows grass on the head.
Correct.
Hence Rosh Deshe.
Correct.
Or earth body, as you called it.
It's kind of like a chia pet. So I turned to my business partner at the time. We had started a marketing business in university. And I said, this product's doing incredible in Israel. Let's make some. And he thought that I was a little bit crazy. But after about 2 weeks of coaxing and convincing him, he's like, okay, let's go. And
you knew you want to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I knew from a very young age, since I was 8 years old, that business was my path. That was super important to me. And early on, for me as a kid, I got identified with a learning disability called dysgraphia.
Oh.
So school was very difficult for me. I was very fortunate that I got identified and I got the help and the support. If not, I don't think I would have graduated school, and I don't think I would have gone to university, and I don't think I would have had a business career. Because the support actually kept me in the school system. But at the same time, my grades were like C's and B's. I don't think I ever got an A. Okay.
All right. Just for a translation,
I never got an A.
C is like 70, B is like...
C is like 60, B is
60. Okay.
Yeah, B is 70, and A is 80 plus. So I don't think I ever scored an 80 plus in any exam. So I always knew that business was my path, and I also I grew up with entrepreneurial parents, and I like the creative aspect of business. Even though I did go to university, I actually did my third year university in Tel Aviv U, studying Middle Eastern politics. But I knew that business was going to be my path.
You just didn't know what kind of business.
Exactly. I didn't know what the business was going to be. I had a dream of just being in business. And when the rush deshet came to us, it was so magical because the barriers to entry were low. To make it wasn't that difficult.
There was no patent, right? You could do...
There was no patent. In the article that my mother read to us, it said that the idea came from Turkey, and no one knew exactly who the person was. And then I figured if 6 people were making the product...
6 different people.
6 different people here in Israel, no one really had the claim to the product. So it's actually quite funny because it's the first product that we ever... it was a generic product, an open market, and everything since then has always been our own intellectual property and our own products. So it was a funny way to start, but a beautiful way to start because we ended up deciding to make 5,000 pieces for Mother's Day. We thought Mother's Day would be a great time for for gifts. Okay, gifts. It's like a plant, you know. And I got my sister to help and my brother-in-law to help.
So how did you make it?
We opened up a little factory, rented a space. We reverse engineered the products from Israel. We tried out different nylons, different grass seeds. My brother-in-law was an incredible engineer. He figured out the manufacturing process for it. We hired people from a homeless shelter to start. And literally we produced 5,000 pieces within 1 week.
Selling to who?
Well, we started selling on the street.
Okay. Where? In Toronto?
We went on 8 different corners in Toronto. And then we came back to the office on Monday and we were like, oh, we still have 4,000 pieces left. And so we were like, okay, we better get hustling here. And so we started looking for distributors, and through a connection, we went to one distributor and presented the product to them. And they were actually a closeout toy company. So they sold end-of-the-line toys. And they said, yeah, sure, no problem. We'll distribute the product for you. And literally a week later, they called us and said, can you deliver us 26,000 pieces?
Wow. All right. How do you manufacture 26,000?
We just scaled up. We moved to a new factory. My brother-in-law, we hired a whole bunch of people. We built out the machinery that we needed, hired more workers.
How did you know what kind of machinery you need for, a rosh deshet?
Listen, my ex-brother-in-law is a brilliant guy. He just figured it out. He's kind of like an autodidact. And then we brought in my third partner, Ben Verity, who's the most creative guy, and we got him to run the factory. And so we just kind of put it together and just had a lot of good people around us. And then something crazy happened. Then we got an order for 500,000 pieces from Kmart.
How did you meet Kmart?
It's a really bizarre story. My business partner was traveling in Europe, and he met a guy from Detroit, Michigan, who had come from a Jewish guy who'd come from a really well-connected family in Detroit. And Anton called him. He said, do you have any connections to Kmart? And he said, yeah, sure, no problem. We can get you a meeting with the buyer. We'll take a percentage, but we'll get you a meeting. So we were like, okay, no problem. And it was the most unique meeting ever because I drove to Detroit and I pitched the buyer. And after 30 minutes, he said to me, I'm not the buyer for this product.
So why were you meeting him?
That's who...
Why didn't he stop you earlier?
I think he was a super polite guy.
Okay.
So I actually didn't believe him. And I kept on pitching him for another 15 minutes. And he said, I'm not the buyer. And then I said to him, you know what? We'll give you the product on consignment. You can have the product. Whenever you sell it, you just pay us. And he goes, I don't think you understand. I'm not the buyer. So I said to him, I just drove 4 hours from Toronto. Can you find out who the buyer is? And he came back with a piece of paper with the words Adrian Zaks written on it, and that was the buyer. So I took my box of Earth Buddies, and I started walking around Kmart Corporation looking for this buyer. And to our good fortune, I found her, and she was sitting at her desk, and I did a 30-second pitch with her at her desk, and she's like, okay, I'll give you a meeting at 3:00 today. I went downstairs, and all the other guys were like, oh, let's go for lunch. I'm like, I'm not leaving the building. I was so nervous. Maybe I wouldn't get back into the building. And it was quite a magical experience because I went back up, and we spoke for like 30 minutes, and then she said, I'll give you an order for 48,000 pieces, and if it goes well, we'll give you an order for 500,000 pieces.
So that was the big break.
That was the huge break. It just accelerated the company. We ended up selling 1 million Earth Buddies that year.
So at some point, this Rosh Deshe, this Earth Buddy wasn't enough, right? What made you like venture out and think of the next product?
You know, we figure that there's going to be a life cycle to the product, and so if we want to keep the business going, we better look for something else. And so we actually found a product called Devil Sticks, which is like a three-stick juggling toy for kids. It's been around since like the 60s. Also another generic open market product. And we started to notice the kids were playing with them and making them in the schools. And then we said, well, maybe there's a trend, something's happening here. We have our factory. Let's manufacture a product. Let's design and develop a product ourselves. So that's what we did. Let's figure out how to manufacture it, and let's sell it. And so that's essentially what we did. And we ended up at Toy Fair in 1995.
And Toy Fair is like the biggest event for toys in New York City, right?
Correct.
How did you finance the business? Did you go to investors, to banks? I mean,
no. We basically we did two things. One, cash flow is king. So because we were young, we started when we were 23. And I have a certain philosophy around starting young. I'm a huge believer in people starting business in their 20s. And one of the advantages that you have is that everybody's rooting for you. People really, really want to help young people, including the buyer from Kmart. The reason why we got the order was because she loved helping young people. She actually called me 2 years later to come to speak to inner city youth in Detroit. And from there, I understood her connection to wanting to help people and give people like a step up. And so how that played out in funding our business was when we went to our suppliers, we said to them, we'd love 70-day terms, 90-day terms, right? We're young, we're starting out, so we'll pay you, but we just need longer payment terms. And then with the retailers, we said, we're also starting out young, so we need better terms also. So we need to be paid in 15 days or 30 days, or some people paid a COD. So
COD is what?
Cash on delivery.
Okay.
Right. So I think our average working capital days were like 70 days of spread in there. So we actually used other people's money that we were doing business with to actually grow and the business. So it was that part, and then the other part was the product sold so quickly that you were able to reinvest it through the sale. So we weren't sitting with a lot of inventory, and money was getting turned into new product all the time.
So at that point, mid-90s, you're selling two generic products. How much were you making? How much was the business big?
I think the turnover we did the first year was probably close to like $3 million in the first year. And then by the second year, it jumped up to like 5 or 6.
Okay. Just to give our listeners, a reality check. Today, Spin Master, the company you built, is worth around $4 billion, right? And it's on the Canadian Stock Exchange.
It's on the TSX, correct.
Okay. So how do you get from 3 million to 4 billion? What happened?
You just keep on working really hard. When we broke into the toy industry, it was such a magical thing. We kind of had a choice. We said, do we want to do horticulture, which is where the Earth Buddy was sold, or do we want to do toys? And the toy industry is such a rich industry with a lot of history behind it. And they have all these people that are toy inventors that come up with ideas, and there's probably about 200 of them around the globe. And they're professional. This is their occupation. They come up with ideas, but they don't commercialize them, and they'll go to companies like ours, or at the time, like or still today, Mattel or Hasbro, and they will license the idea in exchange for a 5% royalty on the wholesale product price in perpetuity.
So who was this inventor you met with the first non-generic toy?
Well, the big idea we got was from Dixon Manning and these two UK inventors, and they came up with this idea for this airplane that flew on compressed air.
Oh.
Right. So back in the 90s, you could only get gas-powered planes or rubber band planes, and so they developed this you basically just pump it up and the plane flew for 45 seconds. And so they came and they pitched us the idea, and me and my partner Ben went to the field and we flew it, and we were like, this is incredible. We were like little kids. We just wanted to fly it over and over and over and over again. And so we decided to license the idea from them. And then we took all the money from Earth Buddies and the Devil Sticks, and we put it into developing this product. We spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, worked with 2 companies in the United States, and then went to China and found a factory. And I lived in the factory for like 6 weeks, figuring out how to get this thing manufactured. And this was our huge break into the toy industry. It was our first, it wasn't even, the irony is it wasn't even a toy. It was a high complex flying engineering product. That all of our, the crazy thing is, we didn't realize it too much later, but all our competitors had turned it down. They'd been shopping this product for 5 years.
Really?
5 years they were shopping.
No way.
Yeah.
Until they met the 2 of you or the 3 of you.
Correct. Till we didn't know very much, but other than the fact that we loved playing with the product.
Now tell me, you got this prototype of plane. Did you go to focus groups? Did you do any scientific process before deciding to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and going for this one?
No, first of all, we didn't think it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars until we got into it. But no, we didn't focus group it. I think we were so close in age to being young, and I think the one thing about being in the toy industry is you got to channel your inner 7-year-old, or your 8-year-old, or your 9-year-old, and if it's fun, it's good, right? And then the hard work begins. It's like, how do you actually make this thing so it's mass manufacturable? But we don't do a lot of focus groups at Spin Master.
So what? Gut feeling?
It's an intuitive art form, and again, you're always in the toy business. You're always looking for the magic. Is there something special? Is there something different? Is there something unexpected? Is there something that hasn't been seen before? Is there that wow moment, or is there? How's the feedback? The feedback that you got from flying that plane was so rich. You wanted to pick it up and do it again and again and again. And so you're looking for that feedback loop in a toy, and that magical moment, a surprise, and unexpected. So, that's just the way we do it.
How did it go? How many did you sell? I mean,
but I would say to find, you have to look through a lot of product to find that magic. It doesn't just happen. How did it go? It went amazing. We ended up launching in 1998. We ended up grossing about $35 million in sales that year. And then the magical thing was that all these inventors that we were out and meeting with and talking with, they all said, wow, this is incredible. You guys can actually engineer, manufacture, market, sell globally. And so that opened up the stream of ideas to us, and we started seeing a lot more good ideas.
So how many ideas do you usually see before you pick up one?
That's a great question. I'd probably say maybe 500 to 1.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of
stuff.
That's
insane.
It's a lot of ideas.
Wow. That's even, less than a VC sees and picks up one venture to back. So we talked about Rosh Deshe. People know what Rosh Deshe is, but your first, I don't know what brand that I guess people in Israel know of is Baakugן.
Correct. Yeah.
So please explain what Baakugän is and how did you come up with this weird toy?
Baakugän is such a great example of how the inventor ecosystem works in North America, and also how the toy business is such a global business, and how global creative minds get together to make something happen. So Baakugän was originally a drawing on a piece of paper by a 23-year-old inventor, first-time inventor, never invented anything before in his life, and he sketched on a piece of paper the idea of having an action figure in a marble.
Okay.
And he did 50 different sketches, different style action figures, different size marbles, et cetera, et cetera. And so Ben Dermer, who was one of the people doing inventor relations, brought in the idea. He signed it. He thought there was something there. And we started to do the development on the product. And the best we could do was actually literally replicate the visual, which was a marble, and you physically opened the marble with your hands, and you physically took the action.
A sort of a ball, right?
Well, let's literally think about the size of a marble.
Right, yeah.
The magic was it was a marble that you can roll, right? And then something, you get the surprise action figure inside. So we developed it, and then we were like, it's cool, but it's just not enough. And I think this was like back in 2005, 2006, and our development capabilities were good, but they weren't like great. And I had started going to Japan in the year 2000, developing relationships with the Japanese toy companies.
Because the Japanese toy market is insane, right?
It's incredible. They're so talented. They did things like Pokemon and Transformers and Beyblade and all these magical toys. And so we said, what if we took this prototype and this idea and we tried to get a Japanese toy company to partner on the development with us? And so that's what we did. And we went down there. We pitched Bandai, and they politely said no. And we pitched Tomy, and they politely said no. And then we did a pitch to Sega Toys, to Mr. Kokobun. And he's a toy legend, but he doesn't speak a stitch of English. No English, no nothing. We pitched to him. And
even worse than your Hebrew, right?
Yes. Worse than my Hebrew. And he says through the translator, he says, "This is great. We'll partner with you. Come back in a few months." So I'm like, okay, great. Toy legend. Let's go. Give it a shot. And 3 months later, get on a plane, go back there. And they take this ball with an action figure inside, and they develop this magnet underneath with a spring. And then this whole play pattern where you roll it onto a card with a graphic on it.
Right.
With the whole point scoring system. And then when the ball hits the magnet, it pops open and transforms. And then you can close it back up again.
That was a hit, right?
It was a $1 billion franchise.
So why doesn't it exist anymore?
No, it still exists.
Still exists.
Still exists, yeah.
But in the cycle of toys, there's like this life cycle of a toy, right?
Correct. We brought it out in 2008. We actually did a television show with it, 4 seasons on our Cartoon Network. Yeah, we followed the classic Japanese model, and it just shot up like a rocket. And then in the 4th year, it started to go down. And so you're very correct by saying in the toy industry, things have a life cycle, and if you wait 7 years, you get a fresh generation of kids where you can relaunch the product. And so that's what we did. We relaunched it in 2018.
So you became a media company, not only a toy company.
Correct.
What set of skills did you need as a company, as an entrepreneur, to have all of a sudden to become or to evolve into a media company?
It was a combination of studying the industry. We started going to a conference called MIPCOM, which is in Cannes, and we started to, I'm sure you've been there many times, and we started going there since...
Heard of.
Okay. We started going there in the year 2000 and meeting with content creators from around the world, because at the time we could never get a license. We could never beat out our competition. So we said, let's go there and find stuff at an early stage and see if we can get the license before something becomes hot. But that actually never materialized. But what it did was it educated us on the whole industry. So we had a bit of education, and then we looked for partners that had already done it before. So when we partnered with Sega Toys and we did the show with them, they owned an animation studio called TMS. Mm-hmm. And so TMS produced the show. We also partnered with Chorus back in Canada. They came in for 25% equity in the show, and they were Canada's largest broadcaster and largest animator. So our technique was learn and partner with other individuals, own less, split the profits, but partner with people that knew what they were doing. And through the partnership process, we started to go up the learning curves ourselves, to the point that we ended up opening our own production company, and that led to our own shows. But it was a partnership model early on.
At what point did you decide we want to go public? Want to have an IPO at the stock exchange?
You were jumping. We decided, we actually wanted to go public in 2008. And I will never forget, we were sitting with the bankers from the United States. It was Morgan Stanley. They came up to Toronto. It was September 6th, 2008. And the market was just cratering as we were having our big meeting with them.
No.
Yeah, and so
Lehman Brothers, everything
was happening. We were having a great year because Bakugan was doing amazing, but the market basically closed, and it was actually one of the greatest things that happened to us because after Bakugan had its incredible rise and we were doing well with a whole bunch of other products, the company in 2012 and 2011 and 2012 had its first 2 down years after 16 years. Okay, so our company was super fortunate. We had 16 years worth of profits, and in year 17, 18, we started seeing brackets. And when I see a bracket, I get a rash. Okay,
a bracket is like a minus, right?
A bracket is on the bottom of your P&L statement, your profit and loss statement. And if you look at a bracket, it means it's a minus. You're losing money. And our company lost money for 8 quarters in a row. Now, we weren't a public company at the time, but we lost money quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. We lost half our sales. We had to let go 35% of the people in the company.
Wow.
We let go of 350 people. 4 rounds of restructuring. Okay. I wish we would have done it in 2, but everybody was so hopeful and so optimistic. Things are going to turn around. The sales will bounce back. It's coming. And it never came. And so we went from $1 billion in sales to $450 million in sales in 24 months. And then we slowly rebuilt the company and went public in 2015. But it was such a fortunate thing because if we went public in 2008, we probably wouldn't be a public company today because the most important thing when you're a public company is hitting your numbers and getting growth. But I guess what was your question? Was why did we go public or
what happened? Yeah.
You know what? We ran the company as a private company for about 20 years. And there was a number of reasons. One is being public is the ultimate partnership, and we're all about partnering. So it matched up really well with our model. I think that when you want to work with other companies on the outside, like if you want to get a license from a Disney or Warner Brothers or larger companies, they get comfort by seeing inside your business and understanding your balance sheet and understanding your P&L. So that transparency was actually really important for us to get licenses in the future, and it actually played out well because we ended up getting the license we're the master toy licensee for DC, so we do Batman and we do Superman, and we're the licensee for Monster Jam, which is a big license, big partner of ours. We're a big licensee. We do Gabby's Dollhouse for Universal. So there was a certain comfort level that people have when you're a public company. There was the ability for us to take some chips off the table for ourselves. There was ability for everybody in the company to actually get to be a shareholder. There was ability for diversification when you have 3 partners. What's going to happen, when you hit 50 or 60? Like if someone wants to leave, or if they don't want to have as much money in the company. When you're private, the sale process is very binary. And we had this philosophy. We said we'd rather have thousands of shareholders than 1 or 2 big investors. We like to be accountable, but we like to be accountable to a lot of individuals rather than 1 or 2. The biggest thing about being public is a discipline, and the discipline to the numbers and margins is something that I didn't fully appreciate at the time, but I really appreciate today.
So when I told friends that have kids that you're coming to the show, nobody knew who Rונן Harari is. But when I said that you are, in charge, or your company invented Paw Patrol, they said, "No way! we didn't know a guy with an Israeli name is, he built this franchise. So tell the people who do not have kids, what is Paw Patrol? How did you start it? And how it became such a huge hit?
Paw Patrol is a show about these 5 amazing dogs that go on rescue missions. I actually call them mitzvah pups. Whenever there's an issue, they're led by Ryder, who's their leader. And Ryder usually gets a call from someone in Adventure Bay when there's a crisis. And he calls up all the pups, but he usually sends 2 or 3 out on a mission. And each pup has a role. So Marshall's a fire pup, and Chase is a police dog, and they all have special backpacks that transform, and they have special dog houses that transform into vehicles that have special powers and abilities, and they can magically solve any issue that happens in the town.
How big is this franchise? What's a good way to measure it? I mean, it plays in 150 countries around the world. The show plays in 150 countries around the world. We're on our 10th season. Every year we produce 52 episodes. Wow.
We launched a movie in partnership with Paramount in 2001 that did really well globally. We actually have our second movie coming out this September 29th globally. So it's turned into something that is deep within the culture. We like to talk about Paw Forever, and so that's what we shoot for, is this franchise to be around for long periods of time. And people talk about Paw Patrol in the context of having your Paw Patrol years.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's any listeners out there without kids, when you have kids, you'll experience your Paw Patrol years. Usually kids from like 2 to 6, and they grow up with Paw Patrol, and they love the characters. And it's just an incredible thing. I mean, I think the best way to measure the success is how children love the characters, and they love the stories, and how they bring the characters and stories into their life. And I think that's the hardest thing. I mean, we produced, after Bakugan, including Paw Patrol, we've produced 10 shows. And 2 have been successful, and 8 have been nice shows.
Mm-hmm.
But they haven't been the ones where the kids want to bring the characters into their bedroom and into their family room and want to play with the toys and just have that very personal relationship with them.
What do you think the magic behind the Paw Patrol is? Why is it so successful?
I think that it was a perfect opportunity of humans that got together to create something super special, and they put in so much love. Every single person that worked on this, from the creator of the show, Keith Chapman, to the director, Jamie Whitney, to the writers, to the animators, to the toy designers that we included in the process, which had never been done before, which is something very unique, to the animation studio that we brought on board. No one knew the success that Paw Patrol would become, but everybody was really into their craft and their art, and they just loved it. And they weren't. You could see it in certain shows that do really well. It's like the attention to detail is so high, and I think that's what made this thing very successful. And then once we had the characters developed and the story, I'm really proud of the company that it had the ability to take certain risks. So let's produce a new show every single year. Let's do a new theme every single year. Let's push the storytelling. Let's create movies. Let's just keep on doing things to engage the audience.
So Paw Patrol will become this sort of, I don't know, timeless toy like Barbie is maybe, or Lego or Playmobil or whatever, that reinvents itself all the time.
Correct. That's our goal. Paw Forever.
So a couple of years ago, after 20-something years of leading in the company, you decided to sort of make a big change in your life. What made you step down from being a CEO to, you'll tell us what you're doing these days for Spin Master, but what happened?
Yeah, I think I actually like to term it step up.
Okay.
I don't know why everybody says step down, because you're not going in a downward direction. You're actually going in an upward direction. My partner and I, Anton, we co-CEO'd the company for good 27 years, and we both felt that the co-CEO model had run its course, and it was better for an outside. It was better for a one CEO model, for the company to be led by one CEO, and I don't think it was going to be. I think it would have been hard for me to lead it, for him not to lead it, or for him to lead it and for me not to lead it. So it was almost better for us to get someone from the outside. And then also it gave me personally the ability to get off the treadmill. And I'd been on this treadmill for a long time. And maybe the treadmill is not even the right way to term it, but the continuous cycle of growing and running a business and bringing to market new shows and buying new companies and new products and new toys and all that type of stuff, that had run its course for me, and I wanted to step back and take some more time for myself, and get myself healthy.
But you're not completely retired, right?
No. I don't like to use the word retired.
Okay.
I think I don't like that word. For me, I think I'll work, up until right to the end. I think it's the healthiest way to get to
That's true.
To
longer life.
The longer life is just work and be mobile. Those are the combinations. But no, I'm still active. I'm chairman of the board, and I lead the M&A part of the business. Both Anton and I actually both do M&A. We have a venture fund that we started, and then we're still, we pick our spots where to contribute and where we can contribute most of the business. But I will say that we do have one large goal in our business, and that is for the business to live beyond the founders. And so this is a nice transition where we're still active in the business, we're not retired, and we're transitioning and getting the business to be able to live beyond the founders, but still involved to a certain extent.
And that, gave you the freedom to visit Israel more, right? You're visiting here more.
Correct. Visit Israel. I took a year and a half off. I traveled in Africa for 5 months. I did my dream trip.
Wow.
It's a dream trip to go from Cairo to Cape Town. I actually did Cape Town halfway to Kenya. So I did half the trip. My car's still there, my vehicle. Spent some more time here in Israel. I have family here. I like the life. I like the people. It's given me a lot of freedom to do stuff that I've wanted to do for a long time.
And Spin Master Ventures looks at companies also in Israel. Are you involved business-wise in Israel in any way?
We're actually involved in a very interesting way. We have a program that we started in Shankar.
Right.
It's called the Toy Innovation Program, developed by Tal Schreiber back in maybe 8 years ago. And it's there to teach people how to invent toys and how to bring toys to market, and how to commercialize them. And it's affiliated with Spin Master, and we fund the program. And then a lot of the people that go through the program, they'll come and they'll do a co-op program at Spin Master in North America, and we help them commercialize it. And we kind of have almost a first right to look at the products, and then they go to other companies if we don't take them. And we've actually expanded now to 4 other countries around the world. So we do education here in Israel. We have a distributor called Diamond. They sell all our toys. And Tal works with inventors here. She's our one Spin Master employee, and she meets with all the inventors here in Israel and brings the ideas in.
What about investing into Israeli products or startups?
Yeah, so we put together. So we have two streams for investment. One is pure M&A, and then we put together a venture fund, which is about $100 million. And our venture team actually came to Israel in May, and we met with about 40, 50 companies.
Wow. But, Israel is software, like cybersecurity, or how is it connected to toys?
Well, one of our parts of our business is actually digital games. And so we acquired a company called Tokaboka.
Okay. Where are they from?
They're from Stockholm, Sweden.
Okay.
And they produce the most incredible mobile games for kids. So we've gone deep since 2016 in mobile games. And so Israel is a great place for mobile games. And we're now starting to get into edutech. So we were looking at companies in that space. So there's stuff happening here. I mean, mostly in gaming.
Right.
That was the matchup.
So Israel, historically, it's not a toy manufacturing country, even though we had some games.
Correct.
Right. Yes. Remicube.
Correct.
Taki. I don't know how big is it outside of Israel, but it's pretty big in Israel. How come you think Israel did not become a powerhouse for toys? Because we have, bright people here, creative people here.
I think probably a lot of it has to do with proximity to the larger markets.
Right.
So the United States, Japan, those large markets where you can commercialize your products at scale. And I think it's got to do with proximity.
So if we have listeners who are, toy guys, wannabe or entrepreneurs, what would be your biggest piece of advice to them?
Come to the trade shows and come to the toy fairs and meet the different companies and meet the players and understand the industry and travel. Don't do it over Zoom. Just come to the trade show. I mean, the biggest ones are the Nuremberg Toy Fair. Right. So walking that toy fair, you can learn and understand a lot, meet so many interesting people. The big toy fair in New York, the Japan Toy Fair. Those are the three big ones that I would say that start to network and understand the industries and meet the companies. And the toy industry is very approachable. People love ideas. New ideas are the lifeblood of the toy industry. And we have a philosophy in our company. We're open to ideas from wherever they come from. So we will meet with anybody, anywhere, anytime, because you just never know. But I will say that just to give accolades to the Israelis, they do infant really well. So there's a company called Tiny Love, which has done really well internationally around the world. And they produce really good games. The toy part, that's why we started the toy program. We're going to get there.
Yeah.
There's going to be a big hit that comes out of Israel.
Toy tech.
It's going to come.
Or whatever. And maybe, another thing is always stay a kid at heart.
For sure.
Are you a kid at heart?
Listen, I'm stuck at 7.
Amazing. Rונן Harari, thank you very, very much for coming to this show.
Aviv, you're an incredible interviewer.
Thank you so much.
Wow, unbelievable.
תודה רבה.
Thanks, buddy.
תודה, ועד כאן 30 דקות או פחות, 40 דקות או קצת יותר יצא לנו היום, אבל לדעתי היה שווה. אנחנו זמינים בספוטיפיי, בכלכליסט, בכל מקום שאתם מאזינים בו לפודקאסטים. יש לכם איזה פאשן לתעשיית הצעצועים, אז תנסו ליצור קשר, או עם התוכנית בשנקר, או באופן כללי. לכו על זה, נשמע לי אחלה תעשייה. אנחנו ניפגש עם פרק נוסף, גם השבוע הבא. עד כאן, ביי ביי.